Good morning, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, the United States, and the world. My name is Eric Ellis. I'm the president and CEO of Integrity Development Corporation, and I'm joined by my friend, my brother, my co-host,
Tommie Lewis, president and CEO of Make It Plain Consulting. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Tommie, man. What's happening good?
Yes, it's a good day. It's a good day. Not only that we've been, God is waking us up this morning, but we are honored and blessed once again to have a phenomenal guest. We'll get to that in just a moment. But Eric, it's here in Cincinnati. It's raining. I'm looking out the window now. It's raining, but sunshine is in my heart. As we were starting our show this morning, off air, I've been filled with the blessings of the Lord, as well as I'm honored that my particular work and deeds have been well received by my brother, Parris Carter, and as well as you, Eric, as we go way back. So I'm full today, and I am going to be a student as well. So that's where I am today.
Well, I'm just going to tell the community, I hope you're up. I hope you got all the morning sleep out your eyes because we have a gift of a guest. Tommie, why don't you introduce your brother, our guest, because I don't want to delay it any longer. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about how our week was. Parris, that's how we kind of start things. But introduce your friend and brother.
So I want to introduce very quickly Dr. Parris Carter in two different ways. And sometimes when we go to professional events and we're asked to introduce ourselves, oftentimes professionals introduce themselves from their professional viewpoint, their title, their role, kind of their years of service. Mm-hmm. And I've learned that those introductions, for the most part, are especially for people of color and Black men, that's our title. It's what we do. It's not who we are.
Right.
Right. It's not who we are. And so I want to introduce Dr. Parris Carter from my perspective of who he is and what he's meant to me. One, Parris Carter is a man, a mind. Latin word for man is mind. And that men solve problems. They identify problems and offer up options and other solutions. Men are in front, behind, and within the group. I have seen Parris Carter lead from being in front, and I've watched him. A clean cut brother, well put together.
Right. Come on now.
And I've watched him like, okay, I'll follow him. That's who he is.
Right.
I've seen this brother in 15 minutes after leading in front fall into the woodwork as if he wasn't there, still poking and prodding other leaders to move to the front. I've seen this man with a phenomenal tool, a gift of whispering to leaders. Parris Carter is the leader whisperer. Eric, he's the leader whisperer.
Can I take that down?
Tommie.
That's powerful right there.
Him simply drop the pearls quietly, nice style, beautiful voice. He has a harmonious voice like a Dr. King who could sing, who would bring people into not only the intellect, but the drum major instinct, the rhythm. Parris Carter has a rhythm about his energy. That's the way I would introduce him. Not just that he's the associate vice president of student affairs at Howard University in Washington, D.C., right? That's just a check. That's just a check. He's much more than that box that's checked. And so it is a great honor and a privilege to invite my brother, our brother, a husband, a father, a son, a friend, a lover of people, and a lover of solutions. If you have a problem and you're serious about a solution, call Dr. Parris Carter. Don't be heeing and hawing about, no. Call him if you want it to get done. Welcome, Dr. Parris Carter, to the Diversity Conversations.
Oh my gosh. Tommie, you're leaving me speechless too early in this that I am honored. I mean, truly, I am honored to be invited. I can't speak enough about how much respect I have for you, just as a person, as a man, as a professional, and what I've always gathered is that your number one desire is to help people. That's what you want to do. You want to uplift our community. You want to help others work in tangent, and that is just an amazing spirit to have. So thank you both for having me this morning. I'm feeling my imposter syndrome coming on. I mean, you referenced Dr. King. I think part of my humility that some people may praise me for is just the feeling that I don't even belong here. Like I'm not that good. People say these things, and that's not me. And so I've got to work through that. But I'm in good company, so I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll say this, that many of us, if you are of the Christian faith, you probably feel the same way when Jesus said, "Greater works than these."
Indeed.
Will you? And every time I read that, I say, well, that can't be true. And yet I think that's what our Father wants for us. And that's a beautiful thing for us to say, that all of the greatest people in our history, in our present, in our lives, they're not all dead.
Right.
And so I think that's so important for us to put it in perspective, because we live in a world of social media where people are spending so much time tearing each other down that it's rare for us to hear one another build somebody up. We could literally stop the show right now, and that needs to be played on repeat around the country and around the world, what you all have just done. And I'm just appreciative of that kind of character existing with men who all of us recognize that we have feet of clay. And so, Tommie, let's go ahead and start with how was your week, man, and talk about things that happened this last week, personally, professionally, and then Dr. Carter, you do the same. Parris will do the same, and then I'll kind of close down, and then we got a wonderful agenda. I hope our community is up this morning because they've already missed some gold.
Yeah, the week was good. Intentionally, I shortened my week a little bit. The week started pretty aggressive, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Early mornings, late nights, Eric, working with clients, looking to get new partnerships, etc. And so I decided to kind of wind down during the end of the week. I did a little golfing, as I do, get out there. We had some real good weather here in the tri-state area. But most importantly, I think that one experience that I learned was over the last 2 months, I had been in a sales process with a particular client or potential client. And we've been going back and forth with regards to their need for diversity, equity, and inclusion training for their executive team, having some conversations. And I was connected with the client through a referral of a friend.
Okay.
So in that, it was kind of a direct ask, but at the end of the day, the client said, or potential client said, we're going to go in another direction. And I asked them if they had 5 minutes to share feedback. What can we do to improve?
Right.
And they were like, absolutely. And so the feedback was that in our interviews, I did not clearly explain exactly what was the outcome from the discussion.
Mm.
And the discussion was, I was going to facilitate a diversity, equity, and inclusion discussion, a dialogue, a conversation, and allow people, to come to their outcome,
Yeah.
right? Some awareness. And so the client said, you didn't tell us what we will get out of it.
Mm.
I thought that was interesting,
Right.
right?
Right.
I was going to facilitate a conversation and lead it toward an outcome, but I didn't know the outcome. Right? I know some people will get it, some people will not.
Right.
Right.
At the end of the day, I was so much at peace,
Right.
Parris and Carter. I was at peace that because I was beating myself up, man, I should have said something about an outcome. I should have said something about an outcome. I should have said, hold on, my phone rang as I'm sitting in my chair, and
Right.
another client said, hey, we know exactly what we want. We're going to kind of triple that proposal that you sent us because we don't want it for 1 year. We want it for 3 years. These are facts.
Right.
We want it for 3 years. We're
Right.
going to roll it out. And I was talking to another brother, man. He's like, man, we know you know what you're doing. We're going to get in. We did the cross references. We did all that. I don't need to overthink it.
Right.
And I said, I'm not going to overthink that other thing either.
Right. Right.
As I was beating myself up, the blessing came.
Mm.
That's how my week is and has been going. I'm blessed.
Right. I love it. You look blessed, bro. Your camera's looking sharp. Your mind is crisp. You on it today. All right, Parris. Yeah.
So let's see. So the week, Tommie, you touched on something that I sort of connect with expectations, right? And sometimes the expectations are in your head, and you have an idea. Sometimes people want you to convey what the expectations are. One, sometimes they genuinely want to know what is expected from this thing that you're going to do for me.
Yeah.
Many times it's what do you call it? It's deflecting. It's a deflecting at times. At times they're really on the fence about what's going on. They don't really want to be pushed, and especially in that diversity and inclusion space. Yeah. They don't really want to be pushed. They don't really want to find out where their deficiencies are. And so I have learned that, demanding outcomes and expectations and measurements up front sometimes can be a deflection. Sometimes. But I digress. My week is obviously it's a lot different. I'm working physically on campus for I do 2 days a week that I go on to campus. We don't have students, but my days even at home are just, it's really, really busy. It's amazing how, in this virtual space, you find yourself in some ways busier.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Than you were. And for us to not have students on campus, there's still so much administrative work and in planning to safely bring students back at some time. So days are really, really, packed. And then my kids are here, so I'm trying to manage their virtual learning. And I got, my 2 boys are, being in front of a computer for 6-7 hours is, I just can't blame them. Like I can't blame them, And so I'm trying to manage, how I give them breaks, but keep them engaged in class. So it, like you said, it's all a blessing. I have a job, Howard has not furloughed or let any people off, which we're the only school in the district that has not done that.
Yeah.
So I'm blessed to still be able to do that and spend more time with my family. That's the upside. So things are good. And things are good. I have no complaints, really.
Yeah.
Well, that's all great to hear. I tell you, it's been a powerful week for me. My wife was laughing yesterday that I had 2 big things happen this week, but so many things have been happening that I didn't really even know what I was going into, and they were major things. And so one of them was I knew I had to speak to SHRM, but I thought it was one of these, state councils or something like that. I didn't realize that I was scheduled to speak to the entire staff of the SHRM national organization.
Oh, wow.
And so I was just blown away, excited. I got on there early. My video camera came on. I had to get off for a minute. I got back on, no video. So I literally had to do the whole thing with no video. But, my faith is strong. And I know that, God is always with you. And so we pivoted quickly. And I thought about it almost in terms of the old radio shows. Mm-hmm. And so even though they couldn't see my video, they saw my PowerPoints and they heard my voice. And so I was able to deliver something in a different way. That's what we do. That still made a significant impact on people. And I didn't spend any time thinking about the loss because I had to pivot so quickly to what remained. And then yesterday, I had the opportunity to do a keynote address, pre-record a keynote address for General Electric appliances. And so I was wondering why they were having me come to Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm like, why do I have to go to Louisville? We're doing everything virtual, everybody, So I'm thinking, I thought I was going to do it right here, my little background, And I go all the way there. And when I get there, I realize that I'm in this professional studio that I've never been in, a professional video studio. And so I go in there and they've got this green screen underneath my feet all the way to the ceiling. They've got these double monitors. They got about 7 people that are all producers that are working with me like I'm somebody famous for a big giant TV show.
Yeah.
And I'm blown away by that. And then they literally set me in the middle of a music studio. And Tommie, you know how much we love music. I mean, that's what I have below me here, Dr. Carter, is a recording studio.
Oh, okay.
And so there I am giving my talk. And I opened up with this that I think is an important thing that I was looking at when I was doing my research. The other thing that happened was that when I was driving there, one of my team members was finishing up my PowerPoint. Mm-hmm. And so I was so grateful that, Tommie, when we got started, how everything we had to do everything.
Yeah. We
had to go to Kinko's at midnight and be making your own handouts and booklets, thumbing on. Is this a staple client or do I need the ring bind? Staple. And so now I'm not only am I not doing my, my stapling at midnight, I've got another one of my team members who I have great confidence in is working on putting that finish on what I'm going to present tomorrow. So I was just so grateful about that, man. And then this week, I found out that my middle son had COVID. So he got COVID. And so, he had come over for Thanksgiving and, we're telling him not to bring his little friend, have her come by the house, but he's going to be, stubborn because his sister brought something. So now that's who brought COVID. So, the 2 of them now tied up. So now everybody got to get tested. So we all went and did that. Mm-hmm. Like nobody else. But it just brings to mind that you have to be mindful that this is not just happening out there. It actually can be happening in here. Yep. So I sent a little note to my kids saying we canceling Christmas in terms of, let's this Christmas so we can be around for next Christmas to hug each other, kiss and everything. Yeah. And then my daughter, I was talking about that presentation where I opened up with this research that I had seen that said, if fathers want their daughters to be CEOs, then they need to do the laundry. And I was so moved by the article because they'd done some research that said that girls gain a better sense of equality, not from what they hear their parents say, but from what they see their fathers do. Oh, wow. If in a home they see my father operating in a more egalitarian sort of way, then I say to myself that I deserve equity and fairness. Mm-hmm. that was powerful to me, man. I was just kind of blown away by that, and I do the laundry in my house. Yeah, but it's one thing for me to say it or you and I to teach it. It's another thing to show them by submitting ourselves to being open and willing to do anything. Yeah. And then my daughter graduated yesterday with her MBA. And Dr. Carter, I got 4 kids. My daughter's the oldest. She had gone to Wright State, then she had dropped out of college for a little while, worked in the mall for a minute, and wasn't sure she was going to pivot back to school. And then some things happened where we were able to get her debt paid. So we paid off her debt, and then she went back, got her bachelor's and just kept running, and now got her MBA, man. And I'm so happy for her. And what I would say to you as a father is that, families are like ducks to me. You got Mother Goose, Father Goose. They're out front. The kids are all over the place. But as soon as one of the children sort of starts heading in the right direction, the rest of them line up behind them. Yeah. And so when my daughter started going for graduate school and the boys start watching that, they said, oh, whoa, she going somewhere, y'all. Let's get behind her. So everybody is now lining up in a way that they never would have lined up behind mommy and daddy's word.
Right.
But after they're watching this, their big sister do this. And they're seeing the 4 offers because I've raised all mine on sports. And now she's a first-round draft choice because of her academics.
Yeah. And
she got 4 offers, and they're looking at all of that, saying, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's how this is done. Yeah. So I'm just grateful. And I'll tell you that we live in a world that right now there's a lot of tragedy happening in our country and in people's families. And my heart and prayers do go out to those situations. But sometimes when God gets in the midst of our lives, we can be right in the middle of a hurricane.
Yeah.
And God can bring blessings. And so I'm just grateful for the blessings that that all of us here are experiencing, and our prayers that can be visited on as many families as possible. And maybe that we can help be a part of that as well. So,
yeah, absolutely. What part of Cincinnati are you from?
I'm from Westchester, so I'm out in Westchester.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, mm-hmm. So we built our house in Westchester probably 27 years ago when I was a really, really young man. And I was like, I couldn't believe that the bank loaned me money. It was kind of like, do they know that? And so I'm thinking, well, at least we in it now, Yeah. I mean, the house I bought before this one, they wanted everything. They wanted my babies, everything, And this house, they just gave me the loan. I was like, what? I'm just 30 years old, and they let me build this big, giant old house. I said, well, we at least in it now. Yeah. And I fully expected to lose it. But here we are 27 years later. We can finally afford our mortgage, man. We went into foreclosure at least once or twice. I mean, oh no, man. Think we about to lose it all, baby.
So you must have been one of the first persons of color out there in Westchester.
We were among the first. There was another families. There was a few families that were here before us, but it was interesting. We saw this and we tried to build a house on another street, but discrimination kicked in. So we had signed off on the contract. They would never dig the hole. And so we went back like, hey, what's going on? And they said, well, we made a mistake and you all owe us, we really need $40,000 more. $44,000. Oh no, I went to my lawyer. What's up with this? This is racism. They say, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we can represent you, but do you want a hostile builder building your house? Okay, no. So we killed that. And the street that we built our house on was the street we were bragging about being able to drive our friends past that street to go to this other street. And God opened up a lot on the street that was our dream street. We were able to build our house, man. And I'll never forget just going there every day with a bag of donuts. Sometimes I bring a bag of donuts and them guys, some of them racist contractors be looking at like, you the owner? No. I work for the owner. I just had to do it like that because they wasn't happy that we was building that. But it's been quite an experience, man. And when I built my house, I said, let me go out back and see where I'm at. And I didn't know that I was building my house on a golf course. And literally, Tommie and I play now. I'm the closest house in all of Westchester to the country club. And I didn't know how to golf then. And then I spent probably about 16, 17 years learning how. So I'm grateful. God has been good to us through the ups and the downs. And I think we gain and learn so much through our down times. And so I think it's important, no matter where people are in their lives, financially or any other ways, that the down times create some experiences and some memories. And they are necessary because they certainly make us more grateful for the up times. But up times financially, that's not always the happy. I mean, we see people that have killed themselves, taken their lives when they had all the money, vehicles, materialism in the world. So material things don't bring happiness. I think it's relationships that really bring happiness and value. Tommie, I know you had a wonderful agenda for us. And so I want you to maybe take a minute to go ahead and open up where you'd like us to start. It's good to see that Vincent Lewis is here with us. Steve Sanders. Steve, I missed you, man. Glad to see you back in the community today.
So again, Parris, this is part of this show, Diversity Conversations, where we start with having a conversation and then kind of turn it over to you to field some questions, get your thoughts, experience, as well as your knowledge. And one of the topics we wanted to talk about, kind of as a segue of around housing. Of late, I've been doing a lot of training and maybe even research around that process called redlining. Right? And many of us are familiar with redlining and how communities were segregated and all that good stuff. But moving into 2020 and now into 2021, as we look at segregated housing, my question is, why do Black folks live with our own? Why do others live with their own? In other words, why do we like to homogenize our communities?
Yeah.
What is that about?
Yeah, and Tommie, that's a great kickoff question. I too, more recently than probably in the last 3 years, have been looking into sort of the history and the origins of segregated living, and the community, that was, the government funded outside of Pennsylvania. And then I can't think of the name of it, but
Green Hills, that we had a number of communities like that were funded where whites could get that.
That's right. And there was all of this regulations that specifically spelled out, you cannot sell property to Black people. I mean, there were some of that language in those deeds and contracts still exists to this day. And so we really learned that a lot of our systematic issues, systematic racism, started with that segregated housing infrastructure. And so, some of it I think is, psychological. Some of it is biased. There's nothing really wrong with wanting to live with like people, but I think just the origins of it, where other folks were keeping us out intentionally, and what that does is that is where wealth gaps start to, that's where it takes off. The foundation is with some of that, because the housing, market is really your best entryway into building wealth, the real estate. And so we weren't afforded that. And, if you look at maybe stereotypes today, if you look at why people feel like they can only live with others that look like them, that really separates us. That is really a huge reason for a lot of issues that happen, right now. I think and I'll just say majority folks, there's, I think, this sense of what we, know as second class citizenship, and, folks that, are different. So that there's going to be property value issues. There's going to be integrated school issues. And the good thing about some of what we're seeing now in terms of what's going on in the country is that's being disrupted in a good way, because, the more people are willing to discuss those issues around redlining and segregated spaces, we have to learn where us as a community can do more in terms of building wealth and be more strategic about how we build wealth. But on the other side, especially working in the D&I space, is educating others, around maybe some of those perceptions. And what I've spent a lot of time in the last 8 months doing this, diversity and inclusion work is this is why disenfranchised people are so upset. Okay. It's not, maybe George Floyd, sort of ignited, but this is why we're upset for so many years. This is a real thing, people. I mean, when you have documentation that prohibits us from being in certain places,
right?
That's years and years of anger and frustration. Right. So if somebody's going to burn down a Target because of their frustration, that Target is not for us. So why? Who cares? Who cares? So I know I'm getting a little, but that's been great to start to have those conversations with other people, because it's not just about, Black people protesting and being upset. This is years and years and years. And I love this young lady uses Monopoly as an analogy. When you work hard, you purchase these things, you build your property up, and people come by and just tear it down. I mean, literally just take all your pieces off the board. They keep going, but they tell you got to go back to start. There's just a lot of anger and hurt around that. So I know that's a little more than just the housing piece, but because I think that the history of the housing segregation movement by the federal government really ignited a lot of our current systemic racism and our major wealth gap. I just think it comes with a package.
And so you're in DC, you're in the district, and it's affectionately called Chocolate City because of the number of African Americans and people of color, right? And we look at the historical biography of the district as well as other major and minor cities. And in DC, you have so many Black folks who have been segregated and made to live in segregated communities. And at the same time, a larger percentage are building not necessarily wealth, but access, right? Yeah. As Eric said about his home, like, are they giving me the money? In DC, folks are like, oh, they're giving it to me. So here's my follow-up question. You're at Howard University. You're a senior consultant for JP Enterprises. You're interacting with educated young people who have an expectation of getting a job, getting a home, right? Living. How do you help young people manage the institutional anger that we have as more seasoned folks, right? Without thwarting, their energy. Because we can always say, just wait for it. You're not going to be able to get in that home because of this, that, and third. How do you help educate those folks to really achieve these home ownership and living arrangement dreams?
Yeah. Ooh, well, that's the work every day, and it's helping young people balance, that emotion with strategy, and empowerment. And for them, for this generation, that's only coming through protests, which isn't necessarily, always the only answer. I think it has moved the needle on some things, so there's value in it. But also, I think just understanding where it stems from. Where does the system of our gap in education based on demographics, where does that come from? Where does that, and all of it has been created. All of it has been systematically created. None of it has just happened by happenstance. A lot of white people didn't just move to that community and have those nice houses where only they could live in. I mean, that was created. And so in order to get in those places, to be a part of the conversation, to create policy and disrupt policy, they've got to use those brilliant minds to do that at the ground level. They've got to, get into public service. They've got to get into policy making. And I think we're moving some of that. I think the country is moving a little bit, but we've moved before, and so we've got to sustain, some of that movement. But I think real estate, and I keep going back to that, I think that is just one really good answer to the equation. Is I was just a conversation with my buddies yesterday. We're talking about Black businesses in Ohio, and we got to move. We got to expand. It can't just be barbershops, salons, and But what does that mean? Well, I think one response to that is land. If you got guys that are willing to invest, think about land first, okay, and then we may have some autonomy to do what we want to, but we've got to build wealth.
Yeah,
because you can't disrupt the system,
right,
until you get some wealth,
right?
Because in those rooms, even in those racist rooms, still money is going to speak louder than anything else. So I think that's important for young people. So I like that this generation is more entrepreneurial. They're looking at ways to build wealth on their own, as opposed to just the 9 to 5. And we certainly encourage that. We do a lot of stuff at Howard to encourage that. But I think wealth is sort of an answer for that, so that you can spread some influence out.
Yeah.
We just haven't always, done that collectively as a community all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And Parris, I'm wondering about that right there, because I see us. So first of all, let's look at what this housing thing means. So for me personally, I remember I was born in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We moved to Dayton, in the hood in Dayton. Beautiful community right over there by Dunbar and Waugaman. Then we moved to Cincinnati to Skyline Acres for my father to go back to get his PhD in psychology with a wife and 5 children. So here we are in Skyline. My first next door neighbors were white Germans. But see, as soon as a few blacks get in, then the redlining, whites say, oh, let's get up out of here because the property value is about to go down. Mm-hmm. And so there was redlining. There were real estate agents that were trying to bring blacks in so they could have a run on the neighborhood and sell all those houses. And then whites ran to Forest Park. Then after my father graduated, got his PhD, we moved to Forest Park. So I was in Forest Park when it was 20% black and 80% white.
Yeah.
And after a while, and all of these turned all the way black. So Skyline, black. Forest Park finally went black. But in Skyline, that was a neighborhood. Right. So when the black people got there, then I had a Miss Andrews, a Mr. and Mrs. Andrews next door neighbors that were like my second family, my second parents. When my parents weren't home, they took me in. I remember her German chocolate cake that she would bake all the time. Mr. Andrews took us and teach us how to fish and things like that. So we had community there.
Yeah.
Forest Park, we had a little bit of community as well. Now I'm in Westchester. Built my house 27 years ago. I've got an Asian neighbor over here, white neighbor over here, white neighbor over here, black neighbor down the street, no sidewalks, which means don't come to my house for nothing, for no butter, no sugar, don't come. So I've been in this doorway once in almost 30 years, doorway, foyer once, dinner once in all those years.
Yeah.
So there's trade-offs that you have to be careful of, that you don't, you don't trade off community for a house by itself without, my kids had to helicopter their friends in. And so, and I think one of the great fears was integration, blacks coming in, black boys coming in, black boys dating my white daughter. And that fear has often been realized.
Yes.
Because when you put people together and when you put communities together, and I think one of the worst mistakes a father of any color could do is try to condemn or try to restrict the freedoms of their children and who they will like. So when you try to restrict that, you are almost assuring that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so we saw a lot of that in this neighborhood, where the white girls were really loving on our boys. But I saw one of my son's friends get accused of rape.
Yeah.
Because a white girl went to a movie with him and wanted to do something. So this is very complex. You know, it's important for us to look at property, wealth, and value. I think that you're right on there in terms of wealth creation is where we have to be. But I think there's got to be a balancing act around what do we want to be a part of, and is it house or community, and can we have both? I think in Atlanta and some other bigger cities, we see people have both. In some communities, even in Cincinnati, we see people have both, the property value, the house, and the community.
Yeah, I agree. But I try to get to the root of, beyond there not being sidewalks, why the white neighbor would not go and have dinner,
Right.
your black neighbor, like it. And what I'm learning more and more is that it sounds cliche, but there is a real lack of education. Like we don't know each other.
Right.
Like we just, we create these images.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on. So a couple things come to mind. If there's this perception or stereotype that when people of color are in a community, the property value goes down. And from a theoretical perspective, again, or ideological perspective, that is a thought. The fact is that there are appraisers that disproportionately appraise property based on the owner. Right. So in other words, if I have a bias that, hey, when the black folks move into the neighborhood, the property is going to go down. At the end of the day, I don't really control that.
Yeah.
It's the people I'm talking to. Hey, appraiser, appraise my house at $500,000. These black folks, right? Go ahead and appraise theirs at, $300,000.
Right.
And then another black family comes in, appraises it at $300,000. Wait a minute, it's driving down the property value, right? Yeah. And then we have this other thing. So that was just a quick statement. I want to ask you this, Parris, because I heard this on one radio show, and it's actually a national radio show, that the statement was around poor folks and their voice being heard in anything, education, politics, law enforcement, etc. And the comment was that, the direct comment was that there are some government officials who, in this administration, current administration, who have done things and taken the money of the poor, taxpayer dollars, right? And to share this question very briefly, my mind went to how much taxes do poor people pay, right? And I'm asking that because I'm thinking the working class, the middle class, whatever. If we have the money, we pay the taxes. But people who don't have money, do they pay taxes? And ultimately, my question is, where is our voice as a community? Is our voice in our representation? Is our voice in our taxes? We're taxed, so we have a voice. Is our voice in our vote? Is our voice literally screaming? Where is the voice of the Black community?
Jeez. On social media.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's a good response on social media. It should be in local government, pushing our local leadership, and we know that we've started to make strides, at the federal and national level, but we still have a very, very small voice there. But yeah, I would say social media, and I hear it, all the time from this generation of college students. That's what they will say that very, very intentionally. I haven't been able to be heard anywhere else, and so I'm taking it to social media. And somebody reached out to me. Somebody from the Washington Post or something, and somebody is reaching out to me.
Right. I'll tell you, here's one of our challenges. Tommie, let's go back to the Black people driving down property value image. So one thing that we know from research is that 90% of Black poor live in a ghetto, and only 10% of white poor live in a ghetto. So what does that mean? Well, that means that we are not given the opportunity or freedom to have our poor live into other neighborhoods. There are neighborhoods in this city that won't take Section 8 housing or anything else. They won't take government money because then they'd have to take the Section 8 housing. So they just say, we don't want any government money. And if you are living with other people that are all poor and are on welfare, then that's what you see on a daily basis. So that's what you get exposed to. If only 10% of white people are in a ghetto, that means 90% of the white poor are in mixed income neighborhoods. You're able to see people doing different things. So when you look at us and think ghetto, well, that's the only place that we were able to get a house at. So now we're all there, and even Black folks of means have fled from that neighborhood, which then leaves us with people who are all desperate. I think that's one of our challenges then. And we don't talk enough about or show enough all of the high-end Black neighborhoods where everybody in is Black and everybody's lawn is immaculate, award-winning.
Yeah.
We don't see that enough.
Yeah.
So we don't even know it exists.
Yeah. And we shouldn't have to, go to those geographic locations in the country,
right,
just to see that or just to be a part of that,
So I think,
but I'm sorry, Tommie, but before we leave this, I'm curious to know of those, the 10 and the 90% of poor white people, how do they get the access to better housing than the 100% of poor Black people?
That's right, because people are willing to take a risk on them because they see themselves in them. And they remember when they needed a helping hand. And they just have more confidence. It's just like white men are promoted in corporate America, oftentimes based upon potential, and women and minorities are promoted based upon demonstrated results. Yes. So we don't get that extra hand up, and they're willing to even lose with whites. I can't even say that it's a total, it's the same risk with us, because with us is the risk of a racist world that we're going to have to deal with. So when the bank's looking at us versus a poor white, that poor white is not going to face the same challenges that I'm facing. So it compounds against us. All of this stuff starts stacking up against us to say that we are a bad investment potentially. And
I would add that historically, this country, and Parris, you spoke to it a little bit earlier, this country has created systems and policies to support the 90% of poor whites to elevate, such as the GI Bill.
Yep.
Our boys were coming back from the war with no money. The government said, we're going to have set-asides and subsidies to not have you return to the urban core, but create subdivisions in the suburbia. And we're going to give you $50,000 where a home costs $12,000.
Yep, that's Green Hills.
Yep. That's around the world. I mean, around the country. Yeah. So now I have no money. I only have a military discipline. I have no education, no formal education, but I have $50,000 when my house is less than 20. I'm going to buy a $20,000 house, and then I'm going to buy a $4,000 car. Right? These were different days, right?
You good?
$500,000, right? Now let's fast forward to 2019, and we have this global pandemic, and people are losing employment, etc. And the government gives out Paycheck Protection Plan funds, PPP, to small businesses, and then the rules are changed that a small business is 500 employees, right? 500 employees. So we'll give you $3 million, $10 million, right? The poor, I have no money, but I have $10 million, right? That's systemic. Yeah. And when Black folks, people of color, like, hey, I have a small business. We have 2 people, right? And we bring a strong $75,000 in annual revenue. So we break that up, and I'm making $30,000 a year. But I got on a suit and a tie. I'm looking for help from the government, right? By way of PPP, government says, we'll spot you, let's say, $6,500. What? This is highway robbery. That's what I get so frustrated. I'm angry as well at times, where how do we break this cycle? Mm-hmm. We may not have the answer now.
Well, that's a great question, Tommie. Let me ask this. I'm going to ask both of you brothers this. So here's the real question. We've heard this overrun statement. The definition of insanity is doing the same things and expecting something different. Okay. So why do we, in many ways, as a people, keep waiting on systemic racism to end and systems to stop being racist? I mean, why do we keep waiting on that and not investing enough in our collective intellectual capital? I think I know part of the answer, but I do have to ask the question. It's kind of like that elephant that when he was a baby, we tied it down with a rope. Now he's an adult, he can pull away, he doesn't even know it. I think that we're in some ways like that. We like to criticize the ignorance of the hyped up Trump voter. Mm-hmm. But all of us get trapped in our own mental, intellectual, cultural paradigms that keep us locked in our current condition. And I believe, and that's why, Parris, it's so powerful for Tommie and I to be working together for 3 years, because we're breaking that cycle of a lack of trust, or you are my competitor. No, in fact, you are my brother. And we've seen ourselves as iron sharpening iron. And the best decision that I ever made was joining forces with Tommie to do this show. And now I help him in his business. Sometimes he helps me in my business. I send him proposals. He sends me information. And what we see is that the world is too big. We're too small. Why in the world will we be trying to fight each other in a big giant world that we live in? Yeah. And we are literally inviting other thought leaders like Kendall Wright and others who come on the show who do what we do because we're not afraid of each other. But I think that part of our answer is that we have to find the time, the energy, and the wisdom that says none of us can make it by ourselves. Quit waiting on systems to stop doing what they do for others. Right. And let's collaborate and find out how we can gain more synergy from coming together. I think that's part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and I commend you because you all are not only, helping others, but you're role modeling. And so we as a community have to see more of that. And the work is endless, it's just endless. It never stops. Yeah. We've got to get out of the historical framework that, we're not given anything and we have to work so hard. And once we get it, we're just going to keep it. We're not going to share the knowledge. We're not going to share the wealth. We've got to break that, within ourselves. So this is an example of, trying to just break that cycle and reach out to others to role model. But I think once we do that, we as a community have to become our norm to reinvest in our community.
Yes.
And that's another piece as these large consumers in the world, it's amazing how much we don't reinvest in our own communities. And that just, there's some psychological stuff there.
Come on now. Come on now.
That's right. That's right. So we've got to do better in those ways. Yeah.
Well, let me share this. So here's one of the mentalities that people will go into corporate America with. They'll go into politics sometimes with. That if I go over there and act right, maybe they won't recognize that I'm Black.
Yeah.
And so what I'm going to do, I'm not going to tell nobody. And this is what we do. We get in there. We don't slam the door. We just close it slowly on the other Black folks that are trying to get in. And we scoot their foot out the door. You know how they be trying to get their foot in the wedge of the door? You don't throw a brick at it or nothing like that. You just now look, we close it out. And then we go to the little receptions and things. We the only Black there. Hey, we go to all the little stuff. We eat the little cupcakes and things. And we in there feeling like, this us, man, this us. We feel like we there. We there. They don't notice I'm Black and I'm in here. Now we know from housing, to tie these two together, that if the second Black comes, it's going to be a wipeout.
Yep.
All of us are gone. So we're going to work hard to keep that second Black out. And then we'll do 15, 20 years of that isolation, hoping that while they don't notice that I'm Black, that maybe they'll promote me and they don't. And then along comes diversity and inclusion. And so they'll make me the diversity and inclusion specialist now. It used to be chief diversity officer. Now I'm serving as specialist. And then I have to retire from that with little money in the pension and no community. And now I can't do anything else. Mm. And I fought for the company all that time to keep out the Blacks. And it didn't advance me in any way. And maybe now I've still got 10 to 15 years left to work. And I don't really know what to do. That's our story too much.
Yeah.
Too often that's our story. And I get it. I'm going to tell you, I don't want to dog out the person who's scared of being Black and collaborating with us. Because we know that a white sounding name on a resume is worth 8 years of experience. We know that when you whitenize your resume, you get more callbacks and things like that. And so we're shell-shocked. We're psychologically dysfunctional, in the midst of all of this pain. And we're lost trying to figure out how to survive. And so you operate in some ways when you're trying to figure out how to survive that aren't in your best interest. And so I remember my great grandma when we were moving to Cincinnati, they used to tell me, if you get in trouble, make sure you get a white lawyer. That's what Black people tell us.
Wow. Yeah.
Because we have been the victim, and there's a lot of that psychological damage that remains. And so I think that we have to prove to one another that we can achieve things with other Black people of conscience, along with other people, white people, Jewish people, Hispanic, partner with whoever you can. But I just think that part of the answer, and it takes some time. We're looking too often for quick fixes and quick solutions. And the answers take a little bit of time, and they take some investment in one another. And I think that instead of hoping, this is the last thing I'm gonna say, instead of hoping all of our people will get this, we just got to get it wherever we can. With whatever 2 or 3 folks, okay, Tommie and I are getting it. Now Parris, Tommie and I are getting it. That's all you need. That's all you need is us few, the community here, to make some moves. And I think that can turn into something. Maybe that's hopefully where we can be headed.
So a follow-up question, still in the same vein a little bit, for Black folks in particular, right? This is a diversity conversation, so it's not only about Black folks. But we're 3 African-American men. Mm-hmm. The question is, when we're in the community and the other Blacks in corporate, for example, when they're found out, right? When they're found out, the jig is up. And then they start to run back toward the community.
Oh,
how should the community receive them such that they're received and that they're humbled, right? Because once they're found out and you're Black, oh my, the jig is up. Come running back. What do we do? Because Black folks can be something else too.
No doubt.
Like,
Right. Yeah.
How should we respond?
Yeah. The jig is up.
Right.
The jig is up.
I'm sorry, Tommie. I got to laugh first. I can't do it all.
That's funny. I've not been in a corporate space. I have been at institutions of higher education where I was, the one or the two. And I certainly do appreciate our HBCUs more than ever before around this issue, to be honest, around this issue. But to your direct question, I think we always have to embrace our people because, when people go astray, we still have the same experience. That person's thought process, was just off track, but that person has to be pushed into mentorship and sharing information. They were an insider at one point. Right. But I do think that we never should shun our folks under any circumstance.
Yeah. I agree with that totally. And I'll tell you what now. So first of all, let's make sure that we go on record as saying some of our greatest allies and advocates in corporate America have been Black people. So Black people out there, let me make it clear how much we appreciate. I know Tommie and I both have benefited from amazing Black champions, white champions as well. But we want to celebrate those people of color who are in these corporate spaces fighting hard to help them to become more inclusive. And so kudos to you. I think one of the things that we've seen is that some people have come out to this entrepreneurial space, Tommie, and it hasn't gone well for them, has it?
No, it hasn't.
It hasn't been easy. It's like Cinderella after 12, you turn back Black now. Now you see some of the challenges. Some of these challenges out here, and you don't have what Carl Satterwhite would call that Mustafa. That's what he called it, the effect that you have when you're inside of corporate America, you know, and you now carry that. It makes you feel like that's you until you come back out here and then you lose all of that, like our president's going to lose all of his after January 20th.
Yeah.
He'll lose some of that. And then it's kind of like, where are you? Dr. Parris, I love your plea for grace and always being open. And that is exactly what I've done. I know, Tommie, that's what you've done. In other words, I don't hold it against people what they've done in an oppressed situation.
Right.
And now their eyes have been opened and there is some struggle. And I've navigated some of these terrain waters out here. And so I absolutely believe that if I don't operate in an honorable way, that's going to harm me.
Yeah.
And so I must be the right right person. And on my good days, that's what I'm doing. On other days, then I'm just as, broken as other people. And I may or may not be as helpful. You know, I don't want that to be my story. Yeah. Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
You know, I continue to learn in our conversation today and want to pose another question in the space of education. And Dr. Carter, this is in your space, your bailiwick. I want to talk about the historically Black college and universities, HBCUs, versus our predominantly white institutions, PWIs. Mm-hmm. If you can, talk to us, and you have experience as a student, as a leader and administrator in the space. For those who are less familiar, what is an HBCU? And then what is a PWI? What's the difference? Maybe some benefits and disadvantages. Mm-hmm. Kind of just talk us through some of that.
Sure. And I'll start with just my personal story, just a little context. I come from a family of HBCU graduates. My mother and father, both Kentucky State University graduates. My brother, North Carolina A&T. I was the first in my family to not attend a HBCU. And, you know, interestingly enough, it was because I wasn't good enough. I wasn't a good enough student because, you know, in those days, HBCUs educated our cream of the crop, you know, and I wasn't a great student coming out of Princeton High School. You know, sports got me out of high school, and, you know, sort of a knucklehead. And so I went to Wright State, you know, and, you know, it was state school, anybody could get in. And so, you know, benefited very, you know, that was my course and really benefited from that education. But then I've worked at HBCU, 2 of them at this point, and just really connected to that community. So I think that some of these issues that we're talking about, one of the things that we do extremely well at HBCU campuses is not just educate, but we prepare young people for the world. Now, I know that's kind of the tagline for any institution of higher education, but the way we do that is through culture and empowerment. Mm-hmm. And I think that we better prepare HBCU students to disrupt some of these systems that we're talking about. And so I think it's an amazing experience. I mean, there's 105 HBCUs and every one of them are different. There are some that are phenomenal. I'll say Howard University. I'll say Tennessee State. I'll say, you know, there are some that are phenomenal. There are some that are just okay. And then there are some, just like any other institutions, that probably aren't offering a good experience. And so, you know, we're not all in the same boat, but I do just see a different value than what I know as a product of a PWI, and, you know, I've worked at 2 of them as well, for Black students. I think that some of the culture, I think the accountability from your faculty members, these are amazing Black scholars, I think the environment to grow personally. I think that the care, the personal care you're going to receive at HBCU. I think the pride that you get attending HBCU. I think all those things you cannot match anywhere. There's one thing, and I'll be honest, that is probably going to continue to be that that difference is a lot of PWIs are going to have more resources, so you may have more flashy things. Your technology may be a little better if you attend a PWI. You're going to be pushed to deal with more of these issues of biases, and I don't know if that's good or bad. If you feel like doing that, I mean, you have opportunities to represent who you are and who your community is, and to educate folks in real time. Because you may be the only Black person in the class, or you may be living with a white roommate or an Indian roommate, and so I think that is extremely valuable. But when I weigh the experience for our young people and having to start to think about this for my own kids, I just think there's real value in attending a good HBCU, and especially now. And that's why a lot of our institutions have seen an increase in enrollment. I mean, several of our institutions have a drastic increase during the pandemic. And we know that is directly related to the social justice issues that are happening, and just the real acknowledgement that, okay, this place is going to prepare me to attack what is going on in our country as a young person, as a professional, when I'm ready to get out there, and I'm going to get a great education. And I just, I'm probably a little biased these days, just because I've seen both, and I just know the work that's being done at some of our HBCU institutions, and I'll leave that there. But there's definitely, when you look at the history, and there's great history at most institutions. But I think when you're looking at how our people established these institutions of higher education, even if it was in partnership with, like with us, with federal government, but the establishment and the work that it took place to build a place for Black excellence in scholarship and thought leaders across the country. I mean, that is just amazing. That's amazing that, people have sort of been pushing the systems for so many years. Sometimes it's kind of, you can feel defeated because you're like, well, we've been working, to disrupt these systems for 150, 160 years, and we still haven't done it. But I think the outcomes have been so significant enough for our community that these are just amazing grounds to walk on.
I love that. Now, let me tell you that we have a surprise here that I think might be connected to you. Is your father Ben Carter?
Yes.
Right. So I'm seeing him here in our flow.
Oh.
And I'm actually bringing right onto the stream. Is that okay?
I text him the link, and I wasn't sure if he'd be able to join, but talking about an amazing story.
What? Let's get on the show. He went from watching it in the audience to right on the stage. What's up, Pop?
Hey, Dad.
What you said when we started, Tommie. Remember when you said you were in the bushes?
Yeah.
Well, Pop out. He was in the bushes. He was just watching it on the bushes. Now he's on the show. Welcome.
Welcome indeed.
Let me tell you.
Glad to be here.
Let me tell you just a little bit, because I love my dad, and he's been my number one role model. So when we were having our conversation a few minutes ago about, corporate folk and then the work that they're able to do within the system. And see, Tommie, I don't even know if you know this. So my dad retired from Kroger. He's an executive with Kroger. Almost 40 some years, almost 50 years, I think.
Wow.
And so he's been in the rooms where, he's been in the business rooms where counterparts are using the N-word,
Right.
but also, started the mentorship program.
Wow.
for young Black store managers. And Tommie, that's how he was connected with Marsha.
Indeed. Yeah.
Through that mentor, that mentor-mentee store manager program for young Black store managers. So it's about balancing, the climate, but what can you do to leave some impact and open some doors for some other folks?
Well,
Thank you for that background.
Yeah, we want you to go ahead and introduce yourself, say hello to our audience, and then any point that you want to weigh in on this, we are open to hearing your voice.
We can't hear you.
I got it. I think I got it. Let's see.
You're on mute.
Yeah. He may have to unmute his mic.
On your phone there.
Okay, now can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, good. Well, good morning, gentlemen. I am in an organization this morning where we have gone to a store, a Kroger store, incidentally, and we bought about $1,000 worth of groceries so that we can feed about 16 families.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was sitting here. I have two families that I'm delivering to. So I was sitting here waiting for us to finish, and I caught my son's information that he was on a podcast this morning. So I went on and joined. I listened for a while. I haven't been on that long,
Right.
but I heard some of the things that he talked about in terms of HBCUs. And I went to Kentucky State University. His mom that I met at the university was also there. So we are products of HBCUs ourselves. And just very quickly, Parris, I guess from the very beginning, and I remember, has always had a real interest in people and how people develop and from an early age. So he's been a coach for a little basketball. I took him to places when I was 100 Black Men, part of the 100 Black Men culture, and I'd take him to overnights where he was a teenager, but he would talk with these 5th and 6th graders about their lives and his life, even at that age. Mm. So, yeah, I'm very proud of him. And yes, we've tried to make sure that they had all the experiences they could. And I came along, just like he said, I was in the room when the words were used. And I really, truly mean that. I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of men, mostly white, of course, and they use the word not recognizing that I was there necessarily.
Right.
And when they did recognize it, it was like, oh my God. And,
Right.
I'd say, well, just go on with your story. We can't interrupt for this. However, be understanding about what you're saying and why you're saying it. Mm. So I've had a lot of experiences in that regard because I worked for a white company and I was a vice president in a white company. And it's amazing what you hear when you're in that room sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad to join. I really didn't plan to have a speaking role. I was just listening, but I do appreciate what you all are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
good to see you. Good to see you, Dad. Thank you.
Tommie, any question you have?
Yeah, I'm just Mr. Carter.
Yes.
Mr. Carter, Tommie
I
Lewis
couldn't hear
here.
you.
You may not remember, but you welcomed me into your home some years ago as a friend of Parris. I wanted to thank you and your wife for the laughs and the great food and all the things we did. Obviously, you don't remember, but I did want to ask, as you were, this is many years ago when you were in corporate America. What was it about you that gave you the fortitude to be in the room and deal with that stuff? What was it about you that really helped you?
I think it goes back to my upbringing. I was born in Greensboro, North Carolina, and we were in a small town, a little small black town, and we had to go to a white grocery store. That old, now you got to picture this, old white men sitting around smoking cigarettes and cigars and whatever, and they would say things as we went in the store to buy things, and we were called black stalks. Black stalks. We were, and what that meant, we were black kids, but were growing fast. And I didn't get bothered by that at that time because I didn't recognize that it was a slur. The black stalks come in. And as I grew up, I had to sit in the back of the bus when I caught the bus in Greensboro, North Carolina, to go downtown as a 10-year-old. And I did that as a 10-year-old and paid bills, paid the gas and electric, etc. I did that as a 10-year-old, but I had to sit in the back of the bus. I went back to Greensboro, North Carolina when I was 19 years old in 1961, and friends of mine and I went to McDonald's. Now, I was living in Cincinnati. So in Cincinnati, it was wide open. You go anywhere you wanted to, anytime you wanted to. And that's all I knew from age 10 until age 19. And when I went to North Carolina A&T for 1 year, 5 of us went to a McDonald's. And we were refused service just because we were black. And this was in 1961. Just because we were black. However, I've been in Cincinnati. I go anywhere I wanted to, eat anywhere I wanted to. So I was shocked at this in 1961. So as I matured and went to work with Kroger in 1967, I became the first black store manager in the company. Right. And I was determined that I was going to succeed at whatever it was I was doing. So when I became the first black store manager, after 1 year working with a company, I was made store manager, and that didn't happen. Nobody else had done that, white or black or whatever. And then after 5 or 6 years in the store, I went into the office, and then after a couple of years there, somewhere along the line, I was promoted to a vice president in a marketing area in charge of operations. I had 162 stores. And you'll be amazed at the things that I heard in those meetings and in those stores. I'll give you one little story. I'm in the store manager and I'm in a meeting with other store managers. We had like 15 of us. And there were a couple other ancillary people in the meeting with us. The district manager sitting there, and we're talking about operations. And we were talking about shoplifting. And one of the white boys said, Mr. So-and-so, what are you supposed to do when 5 niggers walk into the store and they go down different aisles and you can't keep up with them and blah, blah, blah. And then he caught himself and he said, oh, shit. Because I was in the room. I was the only black in the room. And he turned around and said, oh, Ben, I'm so sorry. I said, just go on. Go on with this story. Yep. And of course, afterwards, he came up to him, the district manager, apologized and all of that. And I understood that. And through the years, I understood that people still use racial slurs and racial bigotry is still strong, and it all came out with Donald Trump, as you all know. But growing up in corporate America, it was just amazing. Some things happened. I'll give you one more quick story, and I know I'm not on your podcast,
Yes,
but
you
I
are.
hope this is helpful.
Yes, sir.
We're in I guess I am, but one of my good friends, black friends that worked at Kroger, he was an executive also. He was in a room, and the senior executive was talking, and he said, "We need some luck. You know, our sales are dropping, and somehow we need some luck." And he walked over and stood behind the one black guy in the room. Now, the black guy is a director in the company. And he said, "We need some luck," and rubbed his head. Now, you all are young enough that you may not even understand what that means.
Right. Oh, yeah.
When he rubbed his head, you know, there used to be a saying. It used to be a saying, you rub a nigga's head for luck.
Right.
So he rubbed Calvin's head, and Calvin said it was all he could do not to deck him.
Yep.
And he said, I got up and I said, you're so off center with this. And he walked out of the room, and he walked straight down to the human resources department and told them what happened. The man retired the next day. They retired him, which was the right thing to do. Yep. But they should have fired him, but they retired him the next day. But that's the kind of stuff that people felt like they could do, which was amazing to me. Yeah. But anyway, that's just another story. But growing up and you know, being faced with all of this gave me the fortitude to keep going forward and be successful in this white company as you can be. And I was. And I retired after 40 years working. And then I was called a year later to come back and consult with the company. And I did that for 4 more years. So I've been gone since 2010 from the organization, but I still have some ties with Kroger.
Well, we're going.
I hope that's helpful.
It's very helpful. Tom, I'm going to let you close down the conversation. Mr. Carter, we're so delighted that we were able to have you join in and get some of your wisdom. We even want to have you back. Parris, I'm certain we want to have you back. Tommie, you and Parris, why don't you all prepare to close out? And then this has been a great show.
Once again, coming together every Saturday morning for these diversity conversations is uplifting. This is what it's about. It's about having a conversation with a couple to 3 people and then engaging the community. So we've always had the community who's typed in comments, and now we're talking about generational conversations with Dr. Parris Carter, Pops Carter, and those who we all stand on. It is my honor as president and CEO of Make It Plain Consulting. I stand on the shoulders of my parents, Mr. Ben Carter, and our ancestors. And I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to Dr. Parris Carter as well. My good friend. I'm still in the bush, still following him in the family. Trust me, I came out for a minute just to invite you to the conversation, but I've been watching you, brother. I want to say thank you. I'll turn it over to you, Parris, for closing comments.
Yeah. Thank you, Tommie, and Eric. It's great to meet you as well. I love what you all are doing. I've watched a few of the podcasts as I was, preparing for this one. I was like, well, let me check these brothers out to make sure. And I'm going to go back and watch all of them, because this is the kind of conversation that we need to have more of. You all are role modeling. There are some people that are looking at this and saying, you know what? We need to do more of this. We need to share information. We need to figure out ways to help each other so that our community can be stronger and we can disrupt some of these systems that have not been on our side. So thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we let you go, we do know you're at Howard University, and obviously folks can get in touch with Howard that way. But with regards to your work with JP Enterprises, is there any information that you could share that people can get in touch with you?
Sure. Thank you for that. Yes. Go to our site. I would say go to jamespogue.com. He is our, president and CEO of JP Enterprises. Right now, we've been just moving at a fast pace around conversations around bias, race, inclusion, where we work with companies to see where their deficiencies are. And part of it is just helping them understand why maybe your employees of color are not feeling embraced, or are they, what kind of recruiting are you doing? What kind of incentives for fair incentives to move up, do you have in place, or is it more of a quote unquote good old boy system? And so that has been great work, helping corporations realize what this is about. And so, yeah, please check us out, jamespogue.com, and look at the work that we're doing.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's been a real gift today to have father and son, Parris, Dr. Parris Carter. I know this will not be our last conversation. I want to sort of just connect with you professionally as well. And we will absolutely have to have you back. Tommie, I felt like we just scratched the surface, man.
Yeah, we did.
Thin layer. I mean, a very thin layer. Then we got the bonus round of Pops Carter in there. That's a bonus round. And I'd love to pick your brain a little bit more about Kroger because they're an organization that's still trying to work its way out of the weeds. And so we'd love to talk about that. This has been a gift. And so I'll close out. Again, Eric Ellis, President and CEO of Integrity Development. We want to thank you all that have chosen to join us again this week. We want to wish you a great week. Have wonderful diversity conversations. And then join us next Saturday at 9:30 to once again enter into diversity conversations. Take care. Love each other.
Everyone.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Love you guys.